6 bone-chilling nightmares from the morgue. The shocking truth you never knew. It was a dark, stormy night when the unthinkable struck. A small town's morgue, usually silent, echoed with a series of heartrending cries that sent shivers down the spines of all who dared to listen. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Bodies that had been at rest began to show signs of life, or so it seemed. The flickering lights above cast eerie shadows on the walls, like ghostly figures lingering just out of reach. Many spoke of the odd occurrence the time a body rolled off the slab without a hint of help. Was it a prank? A morbid joke? No one dared to laugh, their faces pale, eyes wide. The whispers grew louder, enveloping the town. Then came the stories. Some swore they'd seen the dead wake beneath the fluorescent glare, eyes blinking open, a rush of cold air filling the room. Their skin, once waxy and pale, seemed to pulse with an unnatural vibrancy. You could almost hear their silent screams, an invitation or a warning. But that was just the beginning. Talk of lab experiments gone wrong started to swirl like the autumn leaves caught in the wind. Had scientists been tampering with the very essence of life and death? The chilling thought held people captive, knitting fear into the fabric of their daily lives. The morgue became a sinister landmark on the edge of town, a place where nightmares blend into reality. And then there were the cold spots, cutting through rooms like knives. People would enter the morgue, feeling fine, but as they wandered deeper, an invisible weight would settle on their chests. It didn't matter who you were. The chill settled in like an unwelcome guest. Voice hushed. They shared tales of shadows that darted between the walls, and a low hum that vibrated just beneath your skin. It said that those who stood too long in the darkness could feel the tingle of fingertips brushing against their necks. But there was no one there. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then, reports of glowing eyes in the darkness spread like wildfire. Those who ventured too close at night spoke of figures at the periphery of their visions, always just out of view. Friends joked about becoming part of a horror movie, but that didn't ease the fear evident in their eyes. What could be waiting in the shadows? What lay beneath the surface of the corpses believed to be lifeless? As the storm raged overhead, swirling winds howled outside, mirroring the inner chaos of the townsfolk. When the clock struck 12, the air felt thick with tension, and the line between the living and the dead seemed to blur. In that moment, every heartbeat echoed the same question. What happens when the dead don't stay dead? The atmosphere was charged, and the flickering lights in the morgue dimmed as if they were responding to the stillness that filled the room. Outside, thunder rumbled ominously, resonating through the corridors like a warning bell. Peregrine Meyer, the town's coroner, stood with his back against the cold steel of the morgue's table, eyes fixed on the shadows that danced around him, uncertain of what he might find there. He had seen lifeless bodies for over 2 decades, but tonight felt different, like a sinister game was unfolding right before his eyes. He could still hear the frantic whispers of townsfolk who had gathered outside. What's really happening inside? Have the dead come alive? Fear twisted their faces and turned their voices into a trembling chorus. But it was too late to turn back now. Out of obligation and curiosity, he had found himself here, drawn to the very place where life had slipped away. Yet something drew near him, something beyond the veil of death. A cold shiver traveled down his spine as he cautiously approached the drawers in the darkened room. The distinct scent of formaldehyde mixed with something sweet lingered in the air, an odor he had never identified before. As he slid open a drawer, heart racing, he instinctively pulled back. Inside lay Helen Parker, the beloved town librarian, her eyes closed as if in eternal slumber. 2 days prior, she had succumbed to a tragic accident. A flicker of hope pushed through the fog of fear. Surely, This wasn't the same woman rumored to be moving in the dark. Just then, a soft groan echoed through the room, a sound so unexpected it paralyzed Peregrine in place. It wasn't the rustling of a rat or the creaking of the building settling. No, it was distinctly human. "Is anyone there?" he called out, voice barely above a whisper. The air felt thick, as if it were waiting for a reply. Silence enveloped him, wrapping around his throat like a vice. Then, the low hum returned, vibrating beneath his skin, prickling his nerves. More terrified than ever, he stepped back, feeling an invisible force tugging at his mind, as madness began to creep in, before he could fathom the meaning of these events. The lights flickered again, illuminating the room just enough to reveal the outline of a figure. Was it a trick of the light? A figment of his imagination? He squinted, desperate for clarity. Approaching slowly, he peered into the shadows, his heart racing like a stampede. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. It was Helen, or what remained of her. Her fingers twitched, and in an instant, he was rooted to the ground, eyes wide, heart pounding in his chest. The fluorescent lights buzzed, flickered one last time, and cut out. Plunging the morgue into darkness, Peregrine felt the chill of 100 icy fingers crawl across his skin, gripping him tightly. He could hear the soft rustling, the sound of something dragging across the floor. Then, he felt it, a soft brush against his neck, a voice barely above a whisper. "Help me." Just then, he understood the waves of horror that swept through the town. The dead were not just awakening. They were calling out. Were they trapped? Did they have unfinished business? The haunting cries of those who had risen from their slumber yet again pulsed through the air, and Peregrine stood paralyzed before the reality that was encroaching, shoving his past to the forefront. What was it that night had awakened from the shadows? Would the line between life and death blur even further? He knew he had to dive into the depths of this mystery, but one thing stood stark in his mind. Each answer could summon even greater terror. He took a deep breath, determined but terrified. Could he face the truth, or would he be consumed by it? As the wind howled outside, one profound question lingered. What secrets lay waiting in the dark, just out of reach? Peregrine's breath quickened as the darkness thickened, wrapping around him like a suffocating shroud. He instinctively reached for the metal edge of the morgue table, feeling the cold bite of metal against his palm. He needed to think, to process, but all he could focus on was the swift, rhythmic sound of his heartbeat, pounding in his ears like war drums. "Help me!" The whisper curled through the air again, more desperate, echoing in the silence. It felt like a plea from a voice he thought he'd never hear again. Helen's voice. Panic surged as he stepped backward, his back colliding with the drawer he had just opened. But he had to know. "Is it really you?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Every instinct screamed for him to run, yet curiosity held him captive. Darkness wrapped around the morgue, punctuated only by the flashes of distant lightning illuminating Helena's figure, slumped yet somehow animated, a macabre puppet still stirring against her will. "Why are you here?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "What do you want?" There was a pause. Then, the sound of bones creaking, of skin stretching across muscle. Rising slowly, Helen lifted her head, eyes still closed, a grim smile creeping onto her lips as though some dark knowledge powered her. "I am not alone," she whispered, and with that, the magnetic connection snapped, and fear overtook him like a tidal wave. He turned to run, only to be met with the sound of shuffling feet from behind, and not just one set. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled as more whispers filled the air, soft, haunting, a low murmur of voices rising like steam from a cauldron. The room shifted around him, shadows taking on form, faces of the departed etched with sorrow and longing, twisted in a battle against their own stillness. His heart raced as he pushed against the door, struggling against the weight of fear that pressed him down. It wouldn't yield. It felt locked by more than just his panic. "Help us." This voice, sharper, cut through the dimness, sending shivers cascading down his spine. It wasn't Helen anymore. It came from somewhere deeper, a chorus of souls tethered to the world that had forgotten them. "No, I can't," he gasped, and with every ounce of strength he shoved harder. To his relief, the door creaked open, spilling him into the cold corridor. He staggered back, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Thunder rumbled ominously above, vibrations crashing around him like something divine was waking. But the cries lingered, the undeniable bond connecting him to the restless spirits that could not move on. Panic gave way to an overwhelming sense of duty. He had trained to handle the dead, but never had he anticipated they would demand something more than he was prepared to give. Something must be wrong, he murmured while desperately catching his breath. Why are they trapped? With courage he didn't know he possessed, Peregrine turned back into the morgue, determination lighting the shadows in his eyes. The figures within were shifting, rising to their full height, and their whispers swelled into chaotic harmony, pulling him closer. In that moment, the door slammed shut behind him. Chills raced through him as he felt a force, some unseen power drawing him toward the heart of the darkness. Then, with a final flicker of light, all went still. Unlock the truth, Helena's voice rang out one last time, chilling him to his core, twisting the very air itself. Was he ready to unearth what lay at the core of this sinister secret? What would it reveal? He felt the cool, clammy touch of a hand on his shoulder, and a chilling realization washed over Peregrine. He was not the one in control. What awaited him in the darkness, and who truly held the keys to the afterlife? Would he find the answers he sought or unleash something even more terrifying? Peregrine could almost taste the tension in the air as he stood, trapped in the suffocating darkness of the morgue. The whispers intensified, swirling around him like a storm. It felt as if the very walls were alive, pressing closer, suffocating him in a cocoon of fear and desperation. Helen's face flickered in the shadows, both familiar and alien. Her smile twisted into something unnatural. Help us, the chorus grew louder, drowning out the pounding of his heart. Help us find peace. The implication left a heavy knot in his stomach. He could see the outline of figures shifting behind Helen, shadows that seemed to pulsate, their hollow eyes gazing into him. Through him, gathering all his resolve, he took a tentative step forward. What do you want me to do? His voice came out barely above a whisper, a tremor threading through the words. Break the barrier, Helen replied, her words echoing with a resonance he couldn't ignore. Release us from our torment. She extended a skeletal hand towards him, an invitation or a warning. Peregrine swallowed hard. The hand reaching for him felt ice-cold, as if it could suck the warmth from his very soul. Logic battled with instinct. He was trained for death, but this was a crossing he had never dared to approach. What barrier? Ask, she intoned softly, encouraging the other voices to join her in a haunting melody of despair. Ask them why they remain, why they suffer. The air thickened, charged with anticipation. Instinctively, he turned to the crowd of shadows swarming around him, faces hazy and indistinct. Yet their anguish pierced through the veil of uncertainty, intensifying the weight on his chest. Why are you here? Why can't you move on? Crimes echoed one raspy voice, agony lacing each syllable. Unfinished business breathed another. Fragments of memories flooded into his mind, mundane faces, lives interrupted, and calamities overlooked. Was he truly meant to bear witness to these lost souls, to unearth the dark secrets hidden within their stories? Suddenly, the air shimmered, and visions danced before him. Glimpses of lives cut short, painful cries for justice echoing in the void. Shadows shifted, swirling like mist, revealing glimpses of violence, haunting images that clawed at his heart. He stumbled backward, cold dread electrifying his every nerve. Something is buried here, he muttered, realization creeping over him like frost. The truth lay deeper than he imagined, tainted by darkness and betrayal. A delicate hush fell over the room as the figures leaned forward, an intense focus igniting their once faded eyes. It was as if they shared a collective thought, a latent memory too heavy to be breached alone. Unlock the truth, Helen whispered again, her tone commanding. You must confront the source. Break the cycle. What source? The question loomed in his mind, and in that moment, the shadows darted forward, swirling around him, trying to merge with him. Panic surged through him, yet a flicker of understanding started to break through the fog. "I won't let you take me," he shouted, voice firm with defiance. "Show me what I need to see." The echo of his challenge reverberated in the cold air, shaking the very foundation of the morgue. Suddenly, a violent tremor rocked the room, and the lights flickered ominously as an oppressive force surged, coiling around him like a serpent ready to strike. Too late. The temperature plummeted, the air thick with foreboding as specters hovered closer, their forms sharpening and twisting into grotesque shapes. Then there was a flash unnatural, blinding. Peregrine was thrown to the ground as echoes of laughter and screams echoed around him. In that fleeting moment he understood. The dead were not the only ones trapped here. As the tumult faded, a single thought plunged deep within him. What horrific truth awaited him when the dust settled and the darkness lifted? The air shimmered again, and he dared to look up, knowing the true nightmare had yet to reveal itself. Would he possess the strength to face it? Or would he become yet another whisper in the endless abyss of despair? The echoes faded into an uneasy silence, but the darkness remained thick. Peregrine blinked away disorientation, bracing against the cold floor. The air crackled, a charged static swirling with ominous energy. He could feel shadows closing in on him, a whirlpool of despair straining against his sanity. "What do you want from me?" He spat into the black, his voice stirring the silence. The weight of the room pressed down, but he stood his ground. "Discover," a voice whispered, scarcely recognizable beneath layers of grief. "Discover the innocence lost." His pulse quickened, adrenaline slicing through the dread. Innocence lost? Had there been something more sinister tucked away? A secret so vile it kept these souls from their peace? Anguished silhouettes stirred in the periphery, urging him forward, their murmurs an almost cohesive cry. Uncertainty gnawed at him. He was not a medium. He was a pathologist, skilled in the anatomy of death, not the spiritual upheaval that twisted around him. Yet, whatever malevolence clung to this place required confrontation. With trembling hands, he fumbled to regain balance as flashes of memory flickered in the corners of his mind. The faces of the dead came rushing at him again, familiar yet foreign, their stories tangled in his thoughts. As if compelled, he staggered toward the center of the room, swallowed by the sinister grasp of shadows. "Show me," he breathed, feeling the icy breath of the forgotten on his neck. "Show me what I need to see." The tension surged as the air warped and rippled. Around him, the shadows coalesced into scenes of anguish. A young woman wept, cradling a lifeless child. A man's anguished cry echoed through a burst of light, coated in blood and betrayal. Each image struck deeper than the last, like knives twisting into his heart. "Unlock the past," Helen urged, emerging from the tumult. Her eyes glimmered with a strange light, almost feral. "Free us, Peregrine," he gasped, each revelation offering gnawing anguish. What connection did these memories bear to him? Questions raced like wildfire through his mind. Darkness crept closer, eager to draw him in. Yet the pain in those souls ignited a flicker of determination within him. What if he could bring justice to the unjustly silenced? "I won't turn away," he declared, his voice steadying, battling the rising tide. "I'll face the truth." Suddenly, the visions recoiled, contorting into a tempest of rage and sorrow, colliding against each other. Shrieks of despair echoed as the shadows pulsed violently, forcing him to the ground. Gritting his teeth, he fought against the pressure, the heaviness of guilt honing his resolve. "Enough!" he shouted. "Enough of this torment. Let me through." In that moment of ultimate defiance, the swirling chaos stilled. The shadows paused, as if considering his words. A palpable silence fell, allowing the faintest whispers to rise. "Seek the box in the wall." Peregrine struggled to his feet, heart racing as another jolt of energy surged through the air. A dull thump echoed through the confines of the morgue, a sound of something more than just despair. It was an action, a revelation, something physical to uncover, a truth that could shatter the cycle of suffering. "Where?" he uttered, desperation threading through his voice, setting his pulse racing. The whispers converged, guiding him toward a corner, shadowed by the remnants of those who so desperately reached out for relief. Steeling himself, he approached the wall as dread sank its claws into him. Fingers rested lightly against the cold concrete, feeling for any indication of what lay beneath. Was he truly prepared to unearth whatever lay hidden within? The air crackled again, and he instinctively stepped back as the wall trembled under his touch. In that moment, he knew. The truth was eager to surface, but its unveiling could unleash something darker than he could anticipate. What would he expose when he broke through? What horrors awaited him behind the wall? From the depths of a long-buried secret, a new nightmare threatened to emerge. Peregrine's heart raced as he faced the wall, dread clawing at his insides. With each second, the shadows whispered louder, their urgent murmurs swirling around him like a tempest. The cold housed secrets, and he was determined to pry them loose. "Just do it," he muttered to himself, his voice barely a whisper. The hesitation felt heavy on his tongue, but the weight of the souls pressing against him pushed him forward. Drawing a deep breath, he pressed his palms flat against the rough surface, feeling the chill seep into his skin. For a moment, he hesitated, unsure of what this box might hold or what it might unleash upon him. The air vibrated with tension as an invisible force stirred within. Then, with a sudden surge of resolve, he drove his fist into the wall. The impact shook through him, sending shockwaves up his arm. He stumbled back, gasping, but the surface cracked. A jagged line snaked its way through the concrete, revealing fissures that darted like lightning with a swift motion. He gathered himself and struck again. The wall splintered, echoes of pain reverberating through the air. Debris fell to the ground, revealing a hollow space hidden behind a false facade. The shadows danced, greedily licking the air, trying to pull him back into their realm of horror. "Peregrine," Helen called, her voice slicing through the stagnant air. "You need to, I can't stop now," he shouted, the weight of invisible eyes urging him to move faster. With trembling fingers, he peeled away the remaining pieces of concrete. There it was, the box, slightly ajar, whispering in a voice both soft and insistent. It seemed to pulse with energy, begging to be opened, like a heart long forgotten. "What are you?" he breathed, enchanted despite his fear. The heaviness in the air thickened, and for a moment, time stood still. Just as he reached for the box, a sudden chill rushed through the room. The shadows writhed, coiling tighter around him, their grasp fierce. A piercing wail shattered the silence, a sound that made his skin crawl, filled with agony and lost hope. "Do you want to leave?" The voice was different now, deep and guttural. It pierced his consciousness, leaving him paralyzed with terror. "You'll find what you seek within, but you will not come out unchanged." "A price," he gasped, understanding rippling in his chest. Whatever lay inside, it demanded sacrifice. But how much was he willing to lose? He hesitated, the fear of the unknown smothering him. What if he unleashed something that could not be contained? The shadows tightened their grip, and with each breath, he felt their desperation, their longing to be free. Then, a memory flickered, a child's laughter, a warm embrace, a life untouched by darkness. Suddenly, the small box felt monumental, and with it came the weight of responsibility. If he opened it, could he save them? Could he reclaim the innocence lost? Summoning every ounce of courage, he plunged his hand into the opening without looking back. A jolt of energy shot through his veins, igniting every nerve ending. The moment felt electrifying, sacred, yet terrifying. He felt the pull of the past surge through him, tangled and as he withdrew his hand. He felt something slip into his grasp, cold and familiar. Juxtaposed with the electric energy, a foreboding dread washed over him. "What have I done?" he whispered as the shadows began to twist violently, their anguish swirling into a whirlwind of dark anticipation. The box suddenly erupted, spilling out images and memories, ghosts of lives entwined with his, secrets echoing from within. A face emerged from the chaos before him, and as recognition dawned, terror settled in his bones. He wasn't just a witness. He was part of this horror, and the next revelation could shatter everything. What had he awakened? What darkness lay in store as the past reeled back to life? Determined to face the truth, Peregrine took a staggering step back, ready for whatever horrors awaited him. But just as he braced for impact, the walls trembled, and an echoing voice whispered one final command. The reckoning is upon you. What fate had he sealed by opening the box? Peregrine's breath quickened, his chest tightening as shadows billowed like smoke, closing in on him. The air grew thicker, heavy with dread as whispers turned into screams. The chaos poured forth from the box, and with it came visions, fragments of his past, but twisted and blurred. A little girl with bright eyes stood among them, laughter spilling like sunlight, but it flickered like a dying candle. What was her name? He couldn't shake the feeling that he should know. Each second felt like an eternity, memories reeling in and out of focus, clawing at something deep within him. Peregrine, get out of there. Helen's voice cut through the noise, but it sounded distant, muffled, as though she were trapped behind glass. No, I have to see. He felt an irresistible pull toward the box again. It beckoned him like a siren, tempting him with secrets he desperately wanted to comprehend. The ground beneath him trembled. Cracks widened, revealing glimpses of darkness that conspired to swallow him whole. Yet, his heartbeat thrummed with a primal urge to explore. There was warmth locked within those memories, a flicker of hope that begged him to harness it. He took a bold step forward, reaching again for the contents of the box. As his fingers brushed against the cold surface, another vision unfurled before him, a bustling street, laughter ringing out, but then trailing off into a haunting silence. He recoiled, grasping the edges of the box tighter. Stop, please, he shouted into the void, but the shadows only laughed, a haunting echo that rattled his bones. They thrived on his fear, feeding off the uncertainty swirling in his heart. Suddenly, a sharp gasp vibrated through the air, silencing the chaos for a split second. Helen appeared at his side, her eyes wide with terror. What did you release? She whispered, her voice cracking like ice. I don't know. I am trying to save. Peregrine's throat tightened, the words a struggle to speak. Could he save anyone if his own hands were haunted? The box pulsed under his grasp, and with a shocking jolt, images cascaded out, each one a shard of his own soul. Faces of people he hadn't thought of in years, long lost, reaching for him in silent screams. Each figure drew closer, stretching with desperate hands towards him, imploring him to remember. Don't let them, Helen screamed, grabbing his arm, pulling him away from the necromancy spilling out. You must close it. But he couldn't look away. A face emerged from the shadows, familiar yet warped. The girl again, bringing with her the scent of summer and childhood dreams that spiraled into nightmares. Help me, she mouthed, her eyes filled with anguish. The ground convulsed, ripping the air from his lungs. No, he cried, instinctively stepping closer, his heart racing dangerously. You can't be lost. The shadows let out a bone-chilling roar, swirling with new frenzy, and suddenly, the air cracked like thunder. Dark shapes began to coalesce, figures emerging from the abyss, shadows drifting toward him, eyes alight with rage and despair. They surrounded him, their whispers intensifying, drowning him in a cacophony of anguish. Peregrine felt the box tremble in his hands, and a rush of heat surged through it. This isn't just a memory, he realized in a sudden flash, his skin crawling. It's their suffering. Peregrine, Helen cried, taking another step back. It's consuming you. Close it. But deep within his chest, the urge grew louder, the haunting cries, the desperate pleas. If he closed it now, he might never find out who the girl was if he could reach her in time. Yet if he didn't, what wrath would he unleash upon the world? What am I supposed to do? He breathed in desperation, his mind at war with itself. The box pulsed again, an answer seeming just out of reach. What had he truly awakened? With fear clawing at him, Peregrine clenched his fists, knowing the next moment could change everything. Would he be the savior or the harbinger of doom? The consequences hung heavy in the air. As the shadows closed in tighter, he stood at a crossroads. The reckoning was upon him. The shadows thickened, pressing in around him like an unyielding vice. Each whisper morphed into a scream, a chilling symphony of anguish that clawed at Peregrine's mind. What was this place? Was the little girl lost within its depths? He had to know. The thought fueled his determination, though he could feel Helen's fear radiating from her like a palpable force behind him. Peregrine. Helen's voice sliced through the darkness again, but he could hardly process her words. The spectral faces twisted in agony danced just beyond the reach of his comprehension. Pleading, demanding. With every ounce of willpower, he pulled himself closer to understanding, to whatever secrets the box held. The box vibrated with a pulsing intensity, and a low thrum coursed through his veins, an echo of every unresolved sorrow. Felt alive, almost sentient. As he extended his fingers to delve deeper, jagged images pierced his mind, confrontations with the lost, those he had once loved. A mother's face twisted in despair, a friend's eyes burning with betrayal. And there she was again, the girl, her laughter fading into heart-wrenching cries. "Help me, don't," Helen begged, terror lacing through her voice. "You cannot fix what's lost." But the gravity of the moment pressed against him, heavy as lead. "What if I can? What if there's still hope?" He tightened his grip on the box, fighting against the pull of memory that threatened to consume him. The ground jolted beneath his feet, and a dark whirlwind lashed out, swirling shadows spiraling upward. He couldn't resist the torrent, the compelling vortex that promised forgotten truths. Suddenly, he was lifted off the ground, the intensity of the box enveloping him as the phantom faces circled closer, clawing at reality, reaching for him with hollowed eyes as he spun. A vision crystallized jagged glass at the edge of the street, bright eyes peeking from behind a corner, laughter ringing like a morning bell. The little girl. Panic surged through him as he clung to the image. He could almost feel her warmth, before it dissolved into the icy grasp of despair. "No!" His voice trembled, a strangled cry caught between hope and fear. He felt the shadows retreat for a heartbeat, a fragile whisper of clarity amidst the chaos. The whispers quieted, almost as if waiting for his next move, but the silence was an illusion. The underlying tension hummed with danger. Then, with a sudden shatter, the box erupted, spewing dark tendrils of energy that lashed out like serpents, catching hold of everything they could reach. Helen stumbled back, her face frozen in horror as she shouted, "Close it! Close it now!" Peregrine was struck with the weight of her desperation, yet the memory of the girl anchored him. "I can't!" he yelled, feeling the very fabric of his sanity beginning to unravel. He was trapped, not just between reality and shadow, but between the weight of obligation and the promise of salvation. What had he awakened? What kind of monsters lay beneath the surface? Before he could comprehend the unfolding nightmare, the box's energy surged again, illuminating the area with a splintered, malevolent glow. The faces morphed into recognizable forms, people he had wronged, loved ones he had lost. Their expressions shifted from despair to anger, their silent screams clawing at the air. Turning his gut with primal fear, Helen screamed. The shadows writhed, hungry for release, swarming his senses, engulfing him in chaos. Heart pounding like a war drum, Peregrine felt his resolve flickering. What would he sacrifice to free her? What could he lose? He was standing on the brink of catastrophe, and each choice weighed heavily. As he teetered on the edge of oblivion, the moment came. Would he surrender to the darkness or embrace the truth, no matter the cost? In that gathering storm, the answer loomed before him, but time was slipping away fast, and the shadows stirred, hungry for his choice. Which path would he choose, knowing salvation could bring its own damnation? The shadows erupted around him, their darkness now pouring like ink, consuming everything familiar. The faces twisted into grotesque masks, their silent cries echoing in his ears. He could hardly breathe, each gasp feeling borrowed, as if the air had been debt owed to the lost souls before him. "Peregrine!" Helen's voice cut through the chaos again. a desperate plea wrapped in fear. He could hear the tremor in her tone, the urgency that clawed at his heart. But there was something more, an unshakable resolve buried beneath her terror. "Don't lose yourself," she cried, and suddenly, amidst the turmoil, he felt her presence cut through to him like a lifeline. It anchored him, grounding him against the onslaught of despair. "Help me!" The girl's voice wafted through the shadows, pure anguish entwined with a flicker of hope. He pressed forward, driven by that haunting call, even as the box vibrated violently in his grasp, like a beast impatiently rattling its cage. "Stop," Helen warned, but the urgency of his heart drowned out her pleas. Was there even a choice to be made here? She may not understand, but he had to find her. The girl deserved more than this shadowy grave. The shadows coiled at his feet, turning what was once solid ground into a quagmire of dread. Little by little, the tendrils, slick as oil and cold as ice, began to crawl upwards. He fought against them, the raw surge of fear igniting his determination. "No, I won't let you have me," he shouted, willing himself to stand against the darkness encroaching. He felt a swell of power in the box, an ancient energy ready to explode, its pulsating rhythm synced to the beat of his own heart. "This place feels alive." As if in response, the shadows roared back, a thunderous wave of despair cascading toward him. Peregrine gritted his teeth, fierce determination igniting within him. The faces of the lost begged for release, but the girl's laugh echoed, transcending the wails, the reminder of joy cutting through the cacophony of misery. "Please," she whispered again, and this time the sound reached a deeper part of him. The air shattered with a resounding crack, a distorted screech piercing through the dark. The box ignited with an eerie light that fought against the shadows, illuminating jagged fragments of memory's bloodied streets, lost promises, and laughter now tainted. But one image stood out, bright and clear. The girl's innocent eyes, pleading with clarity. Suddenly, he felt a searing pain rising within, not just in his mind but like a knife twisting in his chest. The memories were alive, clawing at him from the inside, demanding to be acknowledged. "No, I want tea," he screamed, gritting his teeth against the tumult. But the shadows responded, their whispers morphing into a howling wind, as if fueled by his defiance. They danced around him, taunting, teasing. What choice did he have? To face the past or be devoured by the shadows? Could he find a way through this chaos? Or would he succumb and lose the girl forever? Just as the turmoil reached a fever pitch, a blinding flash erupted from the box, and in that instant, he caught a glimpse of her running, hiding, trapped amid the chaos. Her expression was one of pleading and fear, but also something he hadn't seen before. Hope that enveloped him, pulling him into its warmth just as a creeping chill threatened to devour everything he held dear. With a sudden jolt, he grasped the box tightly, his heart pounding faster. He could feel the darkness pulling, but he gripped harder as new resolve surged within him. "Let me find her." The words erupted from him like a mantra, the power seeping not just from the box, but from his very soul. The shadows recoiled for a moment, almost as if they were considering his challenge. And then, silence fell. But in that silence, a shadow loomed larger, more sinister. A face materialized from the depths, a figure that looked startlingly familiar, eyes hollow, mouth twisted into a predatory grin. "Did you really think it would end here?" He hissed. Peregrine's breath caught in his throat. He stared deep into the abyss of that face, haunted by recognition. What unspeakable pact had he stumbled into? And was there a chance to rescue the girl from the very darkness that sought to claim them all? Time swirled dangerously, and he teetered on the edge of a revelation that could change everything. But what if the truth he sought was more terrifying than the shadows themselves? Peregrine stood in the overwhelming darkness, caught between the echoes of the past and the chilling weight of the present. As the familiar face before him twisted into something monstrous, he felt revelations surface, each demanding their moment in the light. "Who are you?" he shouted, the storm of voices swirling around him, but his focus zeroing in on the figure, a specter shrouded in the remnants of his memories. I am your greatest fear, it sneered, shadow flickering like flames. Every choice you've avoided, every truth you've buried, I'm the consequence. I am them, fear twisted in his gut. He recognized the faces behind the shadow, the forgotten ones who had borne burdens too heavy to name. Pain surged through him, scrambling his thoughts. He was not just the coroner, he was the keeper of their secrets, the unwitting jailer of their stories. Whatever he unlocked had stirred the rawest of emotions, unearthing nostalgia and guilt tangled in a silken web of despair. In that moment, shadows erupted, laughter mingling with the rage of anguished souls. But interspersed among them, he spotted her, the girl, her eyes wide, unblinking in fear. Hope resonated within her gaze, but desperation flickered, carving lines of distress upon her features. It ignited something within Peregrine, an instinct to fight. No, he screamed, forcing strength into his voice, challenging the creature that loomed larger than life. You want to control me. I want to lose her to you. He could feel the warmth of the box pulsing against him, a lifeline amidst chaos. We can keep you, too, the face taunted, stretching a wavering grin as the shadows writhed behind it. Join us, forget your burdens. No, the conviction burned hotter, edged with a profound realization. They were all lost because of him. He turned his thoughts inward, channeling his anguish as he faced the sinister form before him. I will not let the past dictate my future, Helen responded, her voice threading through the darkness with urgency. Remember why you're here. Find her. Release them. The figures in the shadows shifted at her words, whispers vibrating around him, begging to be understood. He locked his eyes onto the little girl once more. The warmth of her laughter wrapped around his heart like precious silk, tugging him forward. Tell me who you are. He called out, voice echoing against the emptiness. And in that instance, the storm shifted. Grace, her voice trembled, a plea filled with a child's innocence. Help me, please. It was as if a thread of connection unfurled and linked them, weaving through the darkness, a lifeline stretching across the divide. With every ounce of determination, he pressed toward her, feeling the shadows cling and claw. Each step felt like a battle against unseen forces, but that glimmer of hope ignited a fire within. Stand with me, he roared, a force of defiance. Whatever binds you here, I will break it. The shadows howled in response, but he pushed forward, solid resolve hardening his chest. The box pulsed beneath him as he reached deep within, grasping memories of laughter, of life. He could feel the anguish coursing through the shadows, but it was time to heal, time to offer peace where he could. I won't forsake you, he cried, steadying the box, aware of the burden he bore. Suddenly, the faces of the lost intertwined, swirling around him. He saw moments flash of shattered promises and lost love. They weren't there just to punish him. They were yearning for an end. With a surge of energy, he clutched the box tight, addressing the darkness enveloping him. Enough is enough. You will not take her. The shadows screamed as he thrust the box forward. In a jarring moment, the darkness turned to light, and a surge of warmth flooded the air, illuminating the figures surrounding him. The girl, Grace, stepped closer, and he felt their shared pain, a collective sorrow that resonated deep within his chest. In that moment of clarity, memories washed over him, her laughter, innocent joy painted across a sunlit playground. There was a warm day, thousands of fireflies beneath a twilight sky, and he could almost hear her giggles dance in the air. Grace, he cried, a plea infused with hope. Come with me. Let us find your peace together. The shadows swirled violently, trembling against his conviction, but amidst the chaos, a flicker of connection formed. Join me, he repeated, finding strength as her small hand slipped into his as he held on. Shadows exploded outward, revealing their true forms, lost souls pulling free from despair, struggling to breathe again. Helen appeared beside him, her presence grounding his resolve. With every second, their essence spread furiously through the room, battling the darkness that threatened to consume them. Together, Helen urged, gripping his arm, her determination pulsing with newfound energy. Release the innocents. In an act of defiance, they thrust the box high, a surge of light engulfing them in ethereal warmth. The faces of the lost began to brighten, shimmering against the encroaching shadows. Each flicker of light tethered to the memories of love, joy, and laughter that connected them, all a lifeline forged in the fires of hope, binding them stronger together. With a final push, the darkness shattered, breaking apart under the force of their unity. The shadows cried, desperate and angry, but Peregrine felt the weight lift. As Grace beamed up at him with shining eyes, the space around them transformed. Light poured in like golden sunlight, illuminating the path ahead. The knowing warmth filled his heart. A promising tomorrow stretched forward, free from the chains of the past. And then silence enveloped the room, peace enveloping the air. "Thank you," Grace whispered, and as her spirit drifted upward, the darkness struggled one last time, fading away with their burden. Light rippled like water under a brilliant sun, illuminating the way ahead, guiding them toward solace as the echoes of their struggles settled. And the walls began to shift again. Peregrine stepped out of the morgue for the last time, knowing he wasn't the same man who entered. The shadows had been fought and won, and the souls he encountered demanded remembrance. But they would now be at peace. Back in the town, life resumed, summer warmth washing over his skin as he stepped outside. The sun was shining bright on the horizon. He breathed in deeply, savoring the moment, a reminder that courage could redeem even the darkest of places. "Thank you," he whispered again, feeling the laughter of Grace and the whispers of the lost follow him into the light as he moved forward. Peregrine understood one vital truth. Facing the darkness was never easy, but the light that followed could be worth every step. From the depths of despair emerged a story of rebirth, reflection, and growth. A tale for those who still remember the lost, who would carry their memories into the future, igniting hope amidst shadows. And as the town continued to thrive, Peregrine knew that he would always be there, honoring those voices within the laughter, the heartache, and all the tender moments that reminded him love never truly dies. Now, let the world know this tale doesn't end here. You need to subscribe now for more unforgettable stories that lift you through the darkness. Don't wait even one more second to share this with your friends, because together, we can carry our stories forward. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Your voice matters. Show your support, and let us hold the light strong together.